What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Gerald here with your weather forecast. Hope we're all out there enjoying this wonderful springtime weather. And luckily, the good news is it's going to last at least for another day or two, depending on where you're at. Some places likely even longer than that. We're going to have this really nice pattern kind of lock into place. So we're going to talk about that in today's video. We're also going to talk about the next storm system that'll likely work into the country later this work week, as well as the potential of maybe some kind of tropical mischief going on in the Gulf of Mexico that will likely produce some pretty widespread rain kind of into Thursday and Friday, and maybe even a little bit of severe weather. So I know it's only April, but it's already getting close to that time that we've talked about the tropics, and today we will be doing that, although, again, I don't expect anything out of this world, but nonetheless, we could definitely get some low pressure in the Gulf that has some tropical characteristics to it. So we'll definitely talk about that as well. And as always, if you are new here and you haven't already subscribed, definitely consider doing so. And if you like the video, make sure to hit that like button and share it with your friends that might be affected by some of this interesting weather on the way. But right now, things are all quiet across the lower 48, especially out here in the east where we've had really just beautiful springtime weather. And I'll show you the temperature map here in a second, but we have these spring-like temperatures going all the way up towards the Canadian border this afternoon. So it's definitely signs that winter is, pretty long in the past now. We're getting very deep into spring now and eventually even summer before you know it, I can guarantee it. But some things to note on the map here. As you can tell, we do have this storminess down into the Gulf of Mexico, and that will eventually work its way into some kind of tropical trouble, or at least low pressure nonetheless in the Gulf that will work its way inland. We also have some showers moving through the northeast, but really nothing crazy, and most of that is kept up into the Canadian side of the border this afternoon. Looking at satellite, again, you can see what I'm talking about down here in the Gulf of Mexico. Look at these showers. It almost looks like July out here. We have this front kind of stalled out here, and you're noticing some spin in the atmosphere or some convergence along this front here. And with that, you're getting these storms to bubble up and want to kind of spin into some low pressure. So we'll take a look at the future radar and what I think that may look like in the coming days. Again, we have this kind of area of cloudiness trying to work into the northeast from Canada, but luckily it hasn't really hampered too much of that nice springtime weather. We also have what you might notice, some stagnant white over here over the Dakotas and Minnesota. This is leftover snow from the last time it snowed in these regions, and the same thing here into the Rockies. You can see this white on the map. This actually is causing quite a unique temperature gradient up here into the Dakotas today, and we'll see that here on our temperature map. This is pretty insane to look at, and shout out to Mitch. He posted this on Twitter this afternoon. This kind of setup that would happen today. In sections of South Dakota here, there's a very fine line between 50 degrees and 90 degrees. So there's almost a 40-point swing here within only 50 to 100 miles difference here through sections of South Dakota because of this snowpack keeping the temperatures down. So that is just wild to look at. The other wild thing here is just look at how far northeast spring-like temperatures have gotten all the way up into Wisconsin, Michigan, Minnesota, getting well into the 70s today. And again, like I just talked about, near 80 out here into South Dakota today, right next to 50s from that snowpack. So a really nice day for much of the lower 48, and this is about as good as it can get on a nationwide scale this time of year. So we'll look at the futurecast. Let me go ahead and bring this map a little bit back into our current time here. Again, this is what it looks like out there. We have this really big, nice high pressure keeping things calm across the lower 48, but that is also helping to create this boundary in the Gulf that is allowing some of this low pressure to begin to form. And as we get further really into tomorrow afternoon, you're going to notice we really have a bit more of a defined area of low pressure here along the Gulf of Mexico here, right offshore from Mobile, Alabama, and New Orleans, as well as Biloxi, Mississippi, and this could become a closed off low. Now, I don't think we're going to get any kind of named storm out of this, but it will definitely almost look like a tropical depression or maybe low-end tropical storm is likely how it will look on satellite as it's working its way inland, starting really later tomorrow and into Thursday. So tomorrow afternoon still looks very clear across just about everywhere here in the lower 48, other than the extreme kind of Gulf Coast areas here from really Fort Myers and Miami up through New Orleans, Mobile, and Biloxi. But other than that, a really nice day tomorrow. Now, as we get into tomorrow evening and Thursday afternoon, this low pressure system is going to continue to work inland. And with this, it will bring the chance of maybe some isolated severe storms here. But really, the main threats would be some damaging winds and maybe an isolated brief spin of tornado. But this is something we experience really quite often down into this part of the country this time of year and into the summertime when these kind of tropical disturbances, if you will, try to move inland. So that's Thursday afternoon. Again, I think that best chance of rain here right into the southeast from kind of Birmingham down to the Gulf Coast. Friday afternoon, though, I think this rain spreads a bit further up into the Carolinas and Georgia, and that's also whenever our next big storm system is going to get going. So Friday afternoon, still nice for many of us, but we will have some unsettled weather here in the Carolinas and Georgia, as well as that next cold front beginning to work here into the country. And with that, it is going to bring some severe storms. Although I'm not expecting an outbreak like we had the past couple of weeks, but more importantly, it's going to bring even cooler air into the weekend. So as we get into Friday afternoon, we could have some severe storms here into the southern plains, as well as maybe even Saturday afternoon as well as this moves further off to the east. But again, you can tell this really doesn't look too robust, and it's not as strong of low pressure as we've had with some of these other fronts over the past couple of weeks. So I do think as we get into overnight Saturday and Sunday, really the peak of this will happen, and we can't rule out some snow up here into the northern Great Plains, but right now I'm not seeing any kind of blockbuster snowstorm out of this, although maybe half a foot to a foot in isolated spots that really get the best ingredients for that snow. But this time of year, that's nothing too out of the ordinary for those folks up into the Great Plains, especially up there into the Dakotas and Minnesota. Going into this weekend, though, you can tell this front will begin to finally push east, and with it, I think the most or the highest chance of rain will likely be up here into the Great Lakes, with the southeast likely staying drier. But even though that sea rain, I'm not expecting a washout any time out of this before this thing really begins to strengthen as it moves up into Canada. So on the back end of this, as this moves through this weekend, the start of next week does look, again, quite below average for this time of the year. So maybe highs 10 to 15 degrees below what you would expect for mid to late April. So nothing too crazy out of the ordinary, but kind of one of those patterns where you might need a sweater in the morning and then kind of a t-shirt under it for the afternoon. So kind of an annoying pattern to dress for, I guess, because you might be cold in the morning and hot in the afternoon. But again, nothing we're not accustomed to here during the springtime. So talking about the chance of some of those severe storms, this is for Thursday afternoon. You can see that threat down here through southern Georgia, southeastern Alabama, and the Florida Panhandle. And again, I don't see anything off the charts here, but the highest threat categories would be some damaging winds and a brief isolated tornado or two. And again, this is for Thursday afternoon, so we will definitely watch that. And then going into Friday afternoon, that chance of severe storms out here into the plains, where that front will move on through and could potentially fire up some severe storms, and kind of all hazards on the table here with these, including strong winds, large hail, and definitely a tornado or two possible from the Dallas-Fort Worth area up through the Kansas City metro area. So talking about the rainfall, again, I think the most rain from now through kind of Sunday evening, or I guess Sunday morning is what this map is for, sorry, will be down here along the Gulf Coast, where we will definitely see the most rain, likely 1 to 3 inches widespread, with a couple places getting 3 to 5 closer towards the New Orleans, Biloxi, and Mobile area. But as we go further up into the southeast, the less rain I'm expecting. So by the time we get to the Carolinas, it looks more like half an inch to an inch of rain compared to the couple of inches down here near the Gulf Coast. And up through the northeast, we likely might not see really much rain at all for the next week or so. I wouldn't be surprised to not see rain again until next Monday, potentially, as this front swings on through that area. But by then, you know, the front likely won't have too much precipitation to work with, so I wouldn't expect anything too crazy. So talking about temperatures, again, over the next couple of days, really nice spring-like weather, although some cloudy, kind of showery weather here into the southeast in those areas that do see that rain from that disturbance that moves ashore. But this warm pattern looks to really lock in for a while before, again, this weekend, that cold front comes through and kind of wrecks the party a little bit, I guess, before that really overtakes the East Coast. And by the time we get into Monday afternoon, again, relatively below average for much of the East Coast. And again, that doesn't mean it'll necessarily be cold, just below average before I think we get another warm up going into kind of the middle part of next week. So that's all I've got for you today. Again, nothing has changed really too much in the forecast from yesterday's video, but of course I will always have a daily video out for you when I can. And, you know, of course, today is one of those days that I always try to get one out on Tuesday. So with that said, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you all tomorrow.